Righty. Welcome, everybody. It's November. Can you stand it? Remember October? I said October is today. Tomorrow is November. Well, now we're in November. Tomorrow is December. Next week is January. That's how this works in Hallmark Awards, right? It just goes by really quick, and it's really important. I'm glad that you're here in November. You get to learn a lot more about the Hallmark Awards and specifically the categories. We break down these 2 sessions in November to Chapter Hallmark Awards, and then the individual awards later on this month. And then in December, you'll be able to do your finishing touches on everything. And then January, these are the awards will be due then. So we're right in time. So I'm glad that you're here. For those of you who don't know me, I am Patty Van Adder, and the Chapter Outreach and Development Coordinator for Phi Theta Kappa, and part of the student engagement team. And today we have Dr. Susan Edwards, our Associate Vice President of Honors Program and Undergraduate Research. And she's going to talk to you all about Honors in Action, right? Because that's one of the 2 chapter projects that you can submit for Hallmark Awards. And then Jennifer, our Associate Vice President, Jennifer Stanford, our Associate Vice President of Program Implementation, will walk you through and give some best practices on the college project award entry. Now, remember, you know, if you're planning to be a 5-star chapter, and we want every chapter to be a 5-star chapter this year, you're going to have to submit at least the Honors in Action and that college project, and then 1 individual award. So I'm glad that you're here. It shows me that you want to be a 5-star chapter, and we're here to support you. Please feel free to put any questions in the chat, and we'll get to them as we can, and then leave some time later on as well. So thanks for coming, and it's definitely time for me to turn it over. Who's going first, Susan or Jennifer? I wasn't sure.
I can cover this slide.
Okay.
I was thinking Honors in Action was first up, but we've got a couple of housekeeping things, so
okay.
I'll go over that.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. As Patty was saying, the applications are already online, and chapter advisors, you will see them when you log into my.ptk.org. You'll scroll down and see all of the different categories to start the applications. However, for your members to see them, you have to report them as a Hallmark chapter delegate. And all that means is that they will have access to it. And we do it that way so that there's not, you know, literally for some chapters, it would be hundreds of members going in and accessing the application. And, you know, we don't want you to be writing over each other. So you select however many you would like. It could be 1, it could be 10. Hallmark delegates is the same process as selecting or reporting a chapter officer. So it's really easy, but if you have any questions about that, we definitely will have our email addresses up at the end of the session, but you can email me at jennifer.stanford@ptk.org. And we want to highlight the deadlines. Also, as Patty was previewing, we do separate them out to give you some space to, you know, really focus on certain categories at certain times. December is our Administrator Award, so that's coming up very soon, tomorrow, as Patty said. It'll feel like tomorrow, but December 7th. And so if you want to nominate your college CEO or another administrator, such as a dean or vice president, those awards are due on the 7th of December. And then the chapter members, officers, and advisors are due January 11th. So we've got a little time after the break, but we know that some of you may not be back for winter break by January 11th. So we want to be sure you have this on your calendar and you're planning ahead for this process so that you won't have to do everything when the college is closed. And then the chapter projects that we're going to focus on today at this session, Honors in Action and College Project, are due January 18th. And then the final categories, particularly for chapters, you would be focused on maybe an Alumni Hall of Honor Award, and that is due January 30th. Patty mentioned that to be a 5-star chapter, you have to submit Honors in Action, College Project, and at least 1 individual award category. So we hope you do that with either the college administrator are the Member, Officer, and Advisor Awards, but Alumni Hall of Honor is your final opportunity to meet that individual award requirement if you haven't already. So all that information is on ptk.org/hallmarks, but please remember the actual applications are at my.ptk.org. So with that, Susan, I will turn it over to you. This is just showing the Civic Scholar, and then it jumps right into Honors in Action.
Thanks, Jennifer. And we always get questions about what do award-winning Honors in Action and college project entries look like? And now there are two places you can go. And for Honors in Action, Civic Scholar, Phi Theta Kappa's Journal of Undergraduate Research is a great resource for taking a look at the variation of different projects and how those projects set up and how they followed the process, how chapters did that. And so Civic Scholar can show you that. And then Changemaker, the journal for college projects, is a place where you can see award-winning college project entries. So you can find those at ptk.org. Here's Changemakers. I love that rainbow of I guess kind of foam. It's not foam, it's just the colors. It's beautiful. This is a place where you can see college projects. It was the inaugural issue of Changemakers. The 2022 issues of Civic Scholar and Changemakers are coming out soon, so you can take a look. But look back at the other ones. You can at least just see how chapters worked through the process, and it's kind of nice to see that. So we have a knowledge question, and I need to be able to read that. Hold on a second. True or false? Both Honors in Action and college project entries are based on activities completed between January 1st and December 31st, 2022. Is that true or false? You can holler out. You can put that your answer in the chat.
True.
Thank you. Thank you. That is true. So you want to make sure that your projects, you worked on those somewhat time between January 1st and December 31st of 2022. That doesn't mean that you had to start on January 1st. There are chapters that do that, but most chapters, in fact, start sometime in the summer or the fall. You may be from a chapter that really has just started working on Honors in Action and college project, and you're going to be finishing up by December 31st. We get the question, what happens if, we did maybe start a little bit late and we're not going to quite finish everything? And the answer is finish something about it. You don't have to finish every piece of the project to submit a Hallmark Award entry, but you want to finish something, some part of it, and sort of explain, well, here's what we finished, here's why, here's what we learned from maybe not completing everything we finished, but I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through, but make sure that as you're finishing up, that you make sure you finish something, so you're done with that. Let's go to the next slide, please. Maybe, can I do that? All right, another knowledge check, true or false? Your chapter's projects must be outstanding to be submitted for Hallmark Awards. True.
True.
Very good. Yeah, we've gotten that. That's actually false. So thank you for everybody who's been writing false. It seems true, right? Because you're Phi Theta Kappa members and chapter advisors, and you strive for excellence. And so we know that. But the reality is that if you're working on the 5-star chapter plan and either something didn't go quite right, or you're really new to this whole process, they don't have to be outstanding. You can write Honors in Action and college project Hallmark Awards that maybe aren't your very best work this time, but you will have achieved 5-star status. You'll achieve, that foundation for your chapter to do better next time, right? You're going to be the people who really set the legacy and the tradition of working on Honors in Action and college project awards. So please let us know what you're doing. That's important. We want to know. We know you're doing good work. So even if you may not think your entries are outstanding, submit them anyway. We want to read about them. We want to read about your work. Let's go to the next slide. So Honors in Action. Let me talk a little bit more about Honors in Action. It's based on the foundation of Honors in Action is based on the honors study topic. And the 2022-2023 honors study topic is the art and science of play. This is one of those tips for your Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry. You really want to let the judges know that you know the honors study topic. So at least one time in your entry, you should spell out the art and science of play. You don't have to do it over and over again. You've got 2,600 words with an Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry, but I recommend that the chapter write out the honors study topic title in the abstract. You are signaling to judges that you know what that topic is. And then you can always, write about play, use the word play as you are writing through your entry, but you always want to go back to the honors study topic as the foundation. And your chapter will have picked one of these 7 themes. We've got 7 really wonderful themes, but you're always looking at the art and science of play, even if you're using the theme as the lens for that. So you want to make sure that you're explaining that in your honor study topic. The one thing I'll say about theme 7, play it forward, because I've seen a little bit of this as we've gone through the year and as people have submitted Honors in Action grant applications. Play it forward, of course, is a play on word of words of pay it forward. But that isn't what the theme is. So make sure if your chapter is working in theme 7, that you take a look at the fact that what it means is that play is a foundation for innovation and invention. And so that particular theme is really all about how play really leads to innovation and invention in children, but also in adults, in other animals who maybe aren't human. And so just watch that one. I've seen as I've read things, people misunderstanding that particular theme. All the other themes, it looks all good. People seem to really have been getting those themes and getting into them. So let's go to the next slide. You've got the honor study topic is the foundation of Honors in Action. The other thing that you really want to do if your chapter hasn't done it already is to get the Honors in Action planning rubric, because it's also the judging rubric. It's the thing that judges look at as they're reading your entry and scoring your entry. So you want to look at the rubric and make sure that as you've gone through the project, the development and the reflection on the project, all parts of the project, that you've looked at what's required. And I'd like to point out that the academic rigor of research is 34 points, service and action 33 points, impact 33 points. But if you read the rubric carefully, there are more points given for the academic rigor of research than there are for everything else. It's not just 1 point. You'll see in the service action part of the rubric and in the impact part of the rubric that there are questions and connections made for which the chapter can score points. And so this is just like a rubric from in class. You want to get those points. You want to make sure you're getting as many points as you can, and that you're making sure that you're addressing the rubric. There are 11 questions for the Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry, but not all the questions show everything that's in the rubric. So you want to look at those things together and make sure that you're addressing those things as you're planning your entry and you're writing the entry and editing it too. This is another knowledge check, multiple choice. Academic sources should be written in which of the following formats? A, MLA, B, APA, and C, it doesn't matter, just be consistent.
B,
Okay,
APA.
good. I'm getting lots of B's and APAs. It's actually APA is the correct answer, the 7th edition of APA. And if you've been gathering your sources, make sure you've got your APA citations now. You don't have to wait till the last minute to get these. When you look at the rubric, it's worth 3 points, but 3 points can make all the difference in the world on the rubric. So this is so easy to make sure that you either use one of the online generators for APA 7 citations, or that you bring somebody in, somebody who's studied in the social sciences or in education where APA citations are used. Get a coach to help with your APA citations to get those right. Again, make sure you're looking at the 7th edition. If you look at Civic Scholar, you'll see examples of 7th edition APA citations in the 2021 edition and in the 2022 edition of the journal. So then you want to look at kind of what's missing, and you're answering the questions. This is all technical writing. So you're answering the questions. That's what you're meant to do, looking at the rubric and seeing what's missing. With academic rigor of research, the emphasis is always on intentional research. If you look at the rubric, how did you really consider what you were researching? How intentional were you as a team, or someone who's a leader of the Honors in Action project? You want to talk about that intention. You want some research objectives. And this is one of those things that chapters often forget, that they don't set research objectives, but there are some, really easy ways to do that. Well, maybe how many people on your Honors in Action team, or how many sources do you hope to find? Or, maybe you've invited the research librarian to work with you, and you're going to get a webinar or a workshop on working with academic sources. You want some of those objectives. The rubric asks for the objectives, the questions for the write-up ask for your objectives. So if you haven't considered those yet, please be sure to do that. Make sure they're measurable, just like all of the other objectives in Honors in Action. Then you'll need at least 8 academic sources and annotations for those. The best thing to do is make sure that the 8 you write about in your Honors in Action entry are truly academic sources. They're vetted, they're journal articles or books, or well-vetted documentaries, those kinds of things. You can write about other kinds of sources in your research conclusions or in your explanation about how you conducted your research, because a lot of chapters start with things like newspapers or websites or TED Talks. None of those are considered academic sources, but it doesn't mean you can't write, but you don't want to put those in your 8 sources you use for your bibliography here. And then the annotations, the thing to note is that you want to make sure that you're writing about what was important about this source for your research, and and potentially for your connecting your research to your action. So the annotations aren't summaries. They're really about what was meaningful about the source. And we're really talking about 2 or 3 sentences. You don't have to write tons more than that. You can write about these kinds of things in the research conclusions as well. And I've already mentioned APA 7th edition citations. Do those now, have them ready, so you don't have to worry about looking up your sources again with the write-up. So then when you're looking at also at the academic rigor of research and the emphasis on intentional research, here are some examples. I've already mentioned that research objectives have to clearly be intentional. You can show that with your research objectives, how intentional you were with setting up your team and your project, and really have reflection on your project. You can just be very open about those things in your entry. And then you want to make sure that you've got those sources. And then the team will determine research conclusions. And you ask yourself questions like, what did we learn? What did our sources teach us? How did this make a difference for what we were working with? If you were looking at your research conclusions and say you changed maybe ideas or shifted the topic a little bit, you can write about those things in the research objectives. So you want to do that, talk about the timeline, talk about other objectives. It's all good, talk about those sources. And this is what the rubric looks like for research objectives. So then we talked about 8 academic sources. Again, I can't emphasize enough, make sure that those 8 academic sources that you write about truly academic. You may look at many, many other sources. And again, you can write about those other sources in a couple of places in the entry, but you want to make sure that, the judges look at those sources, those 8 academic sources, and they look at the bibliographic annotations and they say, yeah, this chapter did intentional academic research. This all makes sense. We can see how the chapter got from research conclusions to action, and it all makes sense. And that's what you're doing with this section of the entry. So then you're going to make sure that your research into the honor study topic, into the art and science of play, will lead directly to your action. One of the things that judges will look at is, okay, if if I considered this theme of the honor study topic and I looked at these sources, does it make sense that the chapter got to this particular action? So you want to make that connection. The rubric for service and action asks about that connection and wants to make sure. The other thing is, communication. You're going to have collaborators, and for honors and action, you want collaborators on your college campus who are not part of Phi Theta Kappa. That can be faculty members, administrators, staff, students. It can be any of those, can be other organizations on campus. But then you also need collaborators from the community. So you want to make sure you've got both of those and write a communication plan for working with those collaborators, because the point of the collaborators is to make sure that you're picking collaborators who will help enhance your project, who have ideas about what you're doing. Maybe those collaborators came at the research phase and they helped you determine those research conclusions or developed your research question or helped you find sources. Maybe they come in the action part of it. It may be that these are people who attended your event or the action piece of your project. Different collaborators will be doing different things for the project. So you want to make sure you communicate. It's a great practice to maybe have a one-page recap of what you did, what you learned, and to thank those collaborators and share with them how the project turned out. You could even share your honors and action Hallmark Award entry, but a nice, white paper, short white paper is really a great communication tool for your collaborators. And you can write about that you took that extra step and did that. I mentioned the direct connection between the honor study topic and the research and action. Heightened awareness of self and community in relation to global issues. One of the things that we want is for you to consider the global implications of what you're studying about the art and science of play. And it doesn't mean that you're going to work globally. If you think about that lovely 70s slogan, think globally and act locally, that's what most chapters do. So you want to make sure that you're looking at, the idea that you have a relationship to a global issue. That might be in one of your sources. It may be in the impact that you write about, what you learned about what you studied and how that connected globally and how that connects to the work you're doing locally. But you want to be very intentional about showing that to people who are scoring your Hallmark Award entry. All right, increased appreciation for the value of informed action as a lifelong endeavor. A lot of chapters miss this. It's part of the rubric, and it's really important for Phi Theta Kappa that this is informed action, that it's very intentional, that what we hope is that we all become lifelong servant leaders for our communities. So you want to consider as you're writing your Hallmark Award entry, that how did you increase your appreciation for this? You may have already had a great appreciation for it, and you can write about that, but maybe you increased your appreciation in some specific way, or you worked with collaborators and the collaborators told you that their appreciation for intentional, informed action as a lifelong endeavor was increased. You can always ask them for some comments about that, and you don't want to skip this part of the rubric because you can earn some points here and really think about what the project meant to you. So here's a knowledge check. The posts we created raised awareness about the importance of supporting small businesses and trades and craftsmanship still alive in our communities today. This statement is an example of A, communication, B, heightened awareness of self and community in relation to global issues awareness, C, increased appreciation for the value of informed action as a lifelong endeavor. So B, I see a B here. You definitely could argue that this is a connection to the awareness to self and community and global issues. Certainly the whole idea of businesses and trade and craftsmanship. This was actually written in a Hallmark Award entry that you can find in Civic Scholar, where they worked with small businesses, and they had done that in 2020 and 2021, so that there were real implications for local businesses in their communities. So definitely that it is a heightened awareness of self and community. Those are the kinds of things you want to consider. And then, the write-up in terms of impact and what's missing. You want to write about your team wants to write about the understanding of the honor study topic. You're not doing original research, but the rubric asks, without question, the project made substantial, specific contributions to participants' and understanding of a theme as it relates to, in this year, the art and science of play, the honor study topic. So you want to make sure that you're very specific about that. What did you and your team learn? Maybe ask your collaborators what they learned about the topic that maybe they didn't know. What did the people who collaborated with you and helped you learn this learn about the topic? And so you want to be very specific about that and in the contribution. So it can be for you personally as a team that you grew as scholars and leaders. It can be for collaborators as well, or for the people who participated in the action piece of your project. All right, then contribution to understanding of the importance of lifelong intentional service. You want to write specifically about this as well, that your entry will provide clear, strong, and specific evidence that participants increase their appreciation for informed action service as a lifelong endeavor. We worked or talked about that. Be specific, give some examples of that. When you're writing an Honors and Action Hallmark Award entry, very often, because you have 2,600 words, people will spend a lot of words writing about the first part of the academic investigation, which is good. There are a lot of points to earn from that. And then they'll spend a lot of time with the action piece. And that can be good, but you might want to look at maybe, can you make that a little bit shorter and spend more time on impact, because that's a place where you can really tie everything up and show judges who are scoring your entry that you've really thought about your entry and you thought about the work you did and you thought about it, what it meant. And one of the things I like to say, that if you look at the second part of Phi Theta Kappa's mission, is to provide opportunities for college students to grow as scholars and leaders. Honors and Action's all about that. So that's one of the things in terms of qualitative data that you can write about in the impact statement of your Honors and Action Hallmark Award entry, that how the team grew as scholars and leaders, and be specific about that. Have some ideas specifically about how everyone grew. And I will let me mention, I know Jennifer's going to mention this for College Project too. The other thing is pay attention to spelling and grammar, because they count. For Honors and Action, that's 6 points of your total. That's a lot of points when you're looking at 100 points. So make sure that you've edited heavily, that you have really considered if you've made some grammatical mistakes, you've made spelling mistakes or typographical errors. The other thing, if you're working with 2,600 words, there's a site called writersdiet.com. You can always, 1,000 words at a time, you can put into writersdiet.com and it'll tell you whether your writing is lean or whether you have maybe too many prepositions. Thank you, Jennifer. Too many prepositions, or you have too many adverbs or adjectives. Those are the kinds of things you can take out to get more substance into your Honors and Action and College Project Hallmark Award entries. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer to talk about the College Project.
Thank you, Susan. And yes, that is absolutely true about what we call the presentation rubric. It's worth 6 points in Honors and Action and 5 points for College Project, but it is such a highly competitive process, especially with hundreds of entries, that the scores of those that, especially in the top 50 that we award on stage at PTK Catalyst, I mean, it could be a 1/10 of a points difference between getting that award on stage and being just under that. So it is definitely something to pay attention to incorporate that time that's necessary to have someone else proofread it, not just you, because you'll definitely get used to seeing it, and your eye will go over and miss mistakes that someone else with a fresh pair of eyes would not. And I see a question popped up in the chat. What have winners scored? So it's a little bit different, of course, every year. I think normally out of the 100 points for Honors and Action, it's usually 90 or above, and sometimes even more than that, even higher than that, right, Susan?
Yeah, it's very typically 90 tends to be the low score, and Jennifer's right. Some years that it's higher in the 90s, and we have had chapters score 100 points.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen every year, but we do have that.
Right. Yeah. So we've had quote unquote perfect entries. And it's painful. I mean, we do award the top 50 for Honors in Action and College Project. And then we also have theme awards in Honors in Action that are the top 3 in each of the themes. But it's still true that you could have a really good project, but it's just below that. So there's, they're really that's one of the reasons why we share scores, so that your chapter can get that feedback. And because of the rubrics being outlined in such great detail, you're going to be able to see exactly where the judge thought that you did great and maybe just missed it by a point or 2 in certain categories. So thanks for the question. Keep them coming in the chat, and we'll be sure that we answer them as we go. So a quick knowledge check about college project. So the main purpose of a college project is A, to provide a service to the college, B, inform administration of student issues, or C, strengthen the relationship with college administration. So I'll give you just a second, put that
C.
in. Okay, all right. All right, it is C, and absolutely, this is the real ultimate goal of a college project, is to strengthen that relationship. The college and the chapter, we see them as very necessary for each other, and we want the chapter to not be seen as just another student club on campus, but a true partner. And we want this project to not just be something that the chapter does unilaterally, but that they collaborate with the administration on deciding what that project is going to be based on what the college's mission and their priorities are. And then the chapter works with the college on fulfilling that project. So it could be you're working with certain departments on campus, but it's a great opportunity to build those leadership skills, just like Honors in Action, and really have that opportunity to kind of take it to the next level. So we want you to know, that's why we named the journal of student leadership to represent our college project, Change Makers, because you can make a difference right now, right where you are. And so that is the goal of a college project. So there are only 5 components of the college project rubric. So we're going to hit the highlights over the next few minutes. And we're going to take kind of that similar take that Susan did by talking about some things that we see missing in college project entries, and to help you, make sure that you don't make those omissions in your college project entry. So as I said before, the presentation is 5 points, and that's talking about the spelling and grammar and that overall presentation. Does your writing flow? Sometimes chapters will use more than one writer for an entry. You can certainly collaborate together, but just keep in mind that even though you're answering separate questions, it's one entry, and it really does need to be cohesive. There can be certainly areas that you might reiterate in another question. So that's why we tell judges to read the entire entry, because you might see something in one question that relates to more than one rubric. But you do want that to be a very cohesive piece. So keep that in mind as well. Especially your writers, whoever is writing it, that they have a thick skin and they know that you're going to edit and probably edit again. So that's just part of the process. This is not their personal work to really be too married to, that it really is about representing what the chapter did in the projects in the best way you possibly can. And that means you've got to lot it up with the rubrics. We want you to know that, especially one of the great things about the judging rubrics is that they are also a planning rubric. And if you look at this is preparation and leadership development. I'm going to talk about these particular elements that we see missing a lot in entries. But if you look at, this is the preparation rubric, this really can be a checklist for you. And so use that rubric now. If you haven't already gotten it out for both college project and honors in action, definitely do that. There may be some things that you can fill in the blanks for things that you may have missed. So that really is critical that you're looking at this before, during, and after your project. So a couple things that we see missing with preparation is that we really do want it to be focused on the college's goals. And so sometimes the chapter will, it's easy to be on a campus and see things that you feel like should be improved. But there's only a certain amount of resources and priorities that a college can make. And so we want you to have that critical conversation with the administration, preferably the president, but it'll depend on your chapter and your college, whomever you meet with, because we know that they have prioritized certain things for this particular moment in time. And so it's about aligning your chapter's resources. And part of that is just volunteers, right? To help them achieve those goals. And they love having students support them in their goals, but there is a process. And that is why that communication in the beginning, during, and after is critical. So we want you to meet, we want you to review the mission, and then make that center in your entry. Sometimes chapters will just kind of gloss over the fact, they'll say, well, we reviewed the mission statement and we met with the administration, and then they never say anything else about how the project specifically tied to the mission, or probably more specifically their strategic priorities, right? A mission statement can be very broad, but when you get into a strategic plan that a college has, or whatever their goals or priorities are listed, that's when you can really zero in on how the chapter is making a difference for that particular initiative. So keep that in mind. And then on leadership development, some of the things that we see missing are, we of course hope that the college or the chapter has a significant leadership role, but sometimes it's easy to just, kind of slip over to the action part, just like in honors in action, and not really talk about the planning and really how it was broken down into, okay, these are the parts, these are the collaborators, this is how we're going to get to completing the goals for the college project. So be sure to share that process with us. Those details are so critical in giving a chapter full points. It's the show versus tell example of, not just that you completed a project, but giving the evidence of how you've completed a project. And that planning process is really where the good stuff is. And that's where you're also reflecting on the skills that you've gained, the experience, the connections that you've made. Your horizons can be broadened with college project, just like with honors in action. So, we hope that you take a lot of good notes throughout this process so that you can share them in your entry. All right, and keep any questions. I know Susan and Patty are kind of keeping an eye on the chat too, just in case I miss it. So looking at the next rubric on communication and cooperative effort, a couple things that we see missing, flexibility and or creativity. We know, and I'll go ahead and say this one too, the regular updates and the final report. So let me bring up, I'm going to talk about impact in a moment, but let me go ahead and bring up the communication and cooperative effort rubric. And as you can see, the one that's really talking about flexibility and creativity is in addressing any opportunities, challenges, or obstacles. And some of you may, have a lot of obstacles. And so this is going to be something that's easy for you to talk about. What the judges are specifically looking for is, did you go back to the administration if you ran into obstacles that may have changed the focus of that project? Because again, this is about the relationship between the chapter and the college. So if the project changes a lot and the administration is not aware of it, maybe others that you're working with on campus are aware of it, but you want to be sure to go back and close the loop with the administration just in case they think, okay, well, since that has come up, let's go in a different direction. And that is okay. We've seen chapters that have had to, midstream go in a totally different direction based on something that happened on their campus that was completely unexpected. But if it's all about the relationship, that's what is most important. And it's not just about being able to finish a project that you've started. That can be we know that can be uncomfortable for many members. It's like, wait a minute, we're almost done, or we're in this direction and we put a lot of time in. Well, that time is not wasted. Trust me, they will totally respect that. And it may be something that the next group of officers can even pick it back up if possible, or it will inform what you do in the future. So none of the process is wasted, but know that any kind of opportunity or challenge, you want to go back to the administration to be sure that you're still on the right path. And that shows flexibility and some creativity, because you do want to finish some part of the project. And so it may take a lot of brainstorming to be able to do that. And that's going to show the judges what they're looking for in this particular rubric. And then the other thing that I will highlight here is about the regular updates. You may start out great. You've had that meeting with the administration and you're off and running, but then there's no follow-up. And it doesn't mean that you have to be in the president's office every week. Of course not. But there should be Susan's idea about that communication plan and writing one out. That is great advice. And it's something you should follow with your college project to make sure you're keeping the administration in the loop in the way that they best want to be kept in the loop. And then that final report, you can share your college project entry. Even better, that white paper kind of highlighted executive summary of what was accomplished is a great thing to share with the administration. Sometimes you're able to have a face-to-face meeting and kind of brainstorm about the good and, the good things that happen and maybe some improvements that could be made in the future. That's always really helpful. And that really does get into the impact of the project. Because again, it's not just about, the project's outcomes of, kind of the physical and the maybe it was an advocacy or awareness campaign, even on campus. Those can be great things, but you have a specific question in the college project entry that's going to ask you how your relationship grew as a result of this college project. So your chapter college relationship. And so you've got to really think about that. And that, having that feedback meeting at the end of the project can be a great way to get some good quotes. It may be shared through email. And so there could be some emailed quotes that you can add, but anything that you can get that really highlights that you're not only hopefully have done some type of project that's going to benefit the campus, but you're also setting up your chapter for a future great partnership / relationship with the college administration. Don't forget, just like when we talked about honors in action, you've got to, you have hopefully prepared early to get this kind of data. And it's so important to be able to, think through ways that you can quantify things that may not immediately seem like that they lend themselves well to numbers. And that's an easy thing to do if you can kind of brainstorm about, well, maybe we served on a committee to do this particular project. Well, tell us more about the committee. Maybe the committee was made up of a certain number of faculty or staff or other students. How many students are on your campus? How many people could be impacted by the college project? So really try to think about things in a way that, maybe it's not immediately obvious of how you can get that quantitative data, but that there are ways to do that may not immediately be noticeable. Okay, so we want to be sure that we've left time for your questions. I know that we've covered a lot with the rubrics. It's thankfully this is all online. We always have our rubrics and the entry questions pretty much year round on our website at ptk.org/hallmarks. And then of course, with the application themselves, they are at my.ptk.org. And I apologize, I'm having some trouble with my voice a little bit this afternoon, just getting over a cold, but hopefully you can understand me, and please put in the chat or unmute if you'd like to ask a question or ask us to clarify anything, or maybe talk about one of the rubrics that maybe we didn't discuss. All right, it's perfectly clear. We like that. Patty's put in the actual links. Oh, okay. Yes. Zena, I think that's.
Yes, that is me.
Okay, go right ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, you mentioned that if for some reason, we don't finish everything that we kind of planned, but you want us to finish something. That is all great. So then does that mean that the rest of the things that we were hoping to do and we do finish, could that be part of the following year's submission? Or
Susan, you want to take it for honors and action, and I'll talk about college project?
Yeah, because they're kind of different. The answers are different for honors and action and for college project. For honors and action, the answer is no, because the process should start over again. So, we want each team to be able to start from the planning and research phase and go all the way through the reflection phase. But it doesn't mean that you can't write about, here are the other things we plan to do. So that, can be perfectly legitimate in an honors and action Hallmark Award entry. But you want to start the process again. And Jennifer, I'll let you answer for college project.
Yeah, it's similar, although I will say, Susan's right. We'd love for each officer team or group of students in the chapter to be able to have that start to finish process. But we know that could be, over multiple officer teams. The key is anything between January and December. So when you're writing your entries for the following year, you can, I guess for college project, there might be some carryover that's kind of laid a foundation. So you could reference things, but you still are going to meet again with the college administration and have that conversation about what's happening right now that the college project for 2023 will focus on. So we get that, relationships and there may be more of a process that has been started with the college administration that will inform what you continue to do and work on. But you always want to be showing that complete start to finish process that's happened in that calendar year. So I know that may sound a little bit muddy, but if we could clarify anything, just let us know. But I hope that helps.
No, that does help. So,
okay.
So if they are things that we kind of, didn't get to, but still wanted to finish, we could write about that in the current application saying, we do plan this, especially if we've already got dates and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's I think that's the real detail of the clarification I was looking for. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring this up, because I was just reviewing one of the entries that you'll see in our new Changemakers journal, where this chapter had done an incredible amount of work in creating a professional closet on their campus. This was Collin College, just in case they're watching. But the actual closet itself, the where students go to get the outfits that they could use for a job interview or other ways that they needed a professional attire. The closet itself opened 3 months after it opened in March of this year, but they had done all of that ground work in order to get the project to open. And so that was definitely enough for them to win a college project award. So it can be done. It doesn't have to be, 100%, because we realize that this is a short amount of time that chapters are working with. And there are processes, especially we all know on a college campus, there can be things that it just takes time to fulfill. There's some steps that everyone has to go through. So, but make sure that there's enough information for the judge to really give you enough points for what has been accomplished.
And I think the other thing, if there's anybody out there who's thinking, well, we're not going to get to those other pieces that we originally planned, I think the other way you can go is to really write in the impact about what you learn from setting up that plan, what you learn from maybe not being able to finish. What were there time constraints? Were there constraints in terms of how you navigate the college? And I think it comes back to that resourcefulness and creativity that we're still learning, we're still growing as scholars and leaders, even though we couldn't finish these projects, the parts of the project we had hoped to complete.
And
I'd like to get back to what the question at the very beginning: does your project have to be outstanding for you
Yeah.
to submit a Hallmark Award? And that this reiterates this, but also to reinforce that we really just want you to try, right?
Yeah.
And if it's just the matter of you telling us how you tried, in order to finish the requirements to be a 5-star chapter, a lot of the times you will find that that's a great foundation builder if you haven't been able to get to that, right? And that then you'll have something to look forward to, whether you're an advisor or chapter officer, they'll return as a chapter officer, where you can pick up on, and you'll have that as a learning, something to help you through next year. So no project has to be perfect to submit an entry for.
Right.
That's
And you
right.
still, I'm sorry, Jennifer.
No, go ahead.
By submitting your, that one individual award in your college project entry and the Hallmark Honors and Action Hallmark Award entry too,
Yeah.
you're going to earn 5-star most likely. And earning 5-star status is a big deal. And that's something to be really proud of and to talk to your college administration about. And you set that groundwork for the future as well by doing that.
Right. Yeah. And our Hallmark Awards process is all about, building those skills, right? So we want, if they go through any type of project planning, and even, as we've said, only part of implementation, there's still value in doing that write-up, going through the steps it takes to reflect on that. And that's going to help members and advisors, and certainly give them some good practice in writing up projects, and probably things that they can transfer on to writing up scholarship applications and their resume, and even having things to talk about during a job interview. So there is a reason it's not just for us to get more Hallmark Award entries that our small group of judges have to judge. But it really is, we want to, we feel like the process ends with a Hallmark Award entry, that it's not finished until you've done that.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Any others?
Any other questions?
Yay, Lynette. Oh, Theodore.
Yeah, Theodore.
I have just a little bit of a specific question about the college project and the focus on strengthening the relationship with college admin. This is sort of my first experience with the Hallmark, so I just want to make sure that I understand this. So I heard a lot of focus on specifically the relationship with the college president. And I just wanted to verify, is it specifically the relationship between the chapter as a whole and the college president or the college admin that this part focuses on? Or is this somewhere we can talk about the relationship that members are building with specific departments of the college, sort of sustainable cooperation between our officers and a specific department, or continued service opportunities for our members with the department?
That's a great question, Theodore. And it really is all of that. I mean, there are definitely relationships that can be strengthened across the campus with staff, faculty, and administration. We recommend that a chapter sit down with the president or the campus CEO. Their title could be different than president, and the reason for that is because that is the building block of a successful chapter. When the president receives the charter of a Phi Theta Kappa chapter, when it is created on a campus, it is given to whoever holds that college CEO position. So we do want to make sure that, that relationship is strong, that the president is aware of the Phi Theta Kappa chapter. And there are some presidents that will, take that opportunity to work very closely themselves in the college project. But we certainly understand that it may just be a meeting that they have, and then the president does really recommend who on campus they should work with to carry out the project. But those conversations and that networking that happens, again, across the board. It could be with the maintenance department at a college campus, the ones that, work on the grounds, or it could be a faculty or student services. I mean, there's no limit to what the focus of the college project is, as long as it relates to the college's mission and their priorities. So it's a wide group of people that could be involved.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Patty, should I show the last upcoming events slide?
Perfect.
Okay,
Yes.
there you go.
So yeah, we have another one that I'll talk about it real quick, but we'll get it updated on the calendar as well. So our next session for Hallmarks is we're gonna focus on the individual Hallmark Awards. So, your chapter officers, your members, and I hope you're thinking of your advisors as well. Or also your college administration, whether it's for the Paragon, for college presidents, or any of the other categories under the individual Hallmark Awards. You really can, any chapter, despite how your college project or your honors in action project ended, you really can put a good, really submit outstanding work on recognizing those in your chapter that helped this year, right? That helped stand up and engage in what's going on with your chapter. So we really want you to attend this one, so you'll hear more tips and best practices on how to honor their service to your chapter in whichever way they have done that. And so please come out, and there's no limit. And we ask you to submit at least one individual Hallmark Award, but you could submit quite a few. So definitely join us on November 30th for that. And then after Hallmarks comes Catalyst, right? What do we do with what happens with all these Hallmark Awards? And of course, Catalyst being our celebration. And when we on the international level present the Hallmark Award winners. And so usually right after Hallmarks, we're thinking about, okay, how are we getting there? Where are we getting the money? So we're going to invite advisors to come to the advisor session on December 7th, where we're going to talk about writing proposals for PTK Catalyst funding. As you know, Catalyst will be held in April in Columbus, Ohio. And we'd love to see as many of you as possible. So please, join us for then. For the students, for the members that are here, I'm excited to announce that on December 13th, we're going to join forces with with our college relations department at Phi Theta Kappa. And they're going to do a whole presentation on how you can get the most out of your benefits in PTK Connect for transfer. So please join us then. I'll send out another email for that. It'll be December 13th. And the staff from College Relations will be joining us and showing us PTK Connect and how you can all use that. And it's a very important benefit, and it goes it's underutilized, and we want you to make sure that you are familiar with it. And then there'll be one more meeting with the advisors, and we'll check in with you on that later. And before we end this today, I do want to remind everybody that all of the sessions for this entire year, whether you're an advisor or a member, can be found in getanedge.ptk.org under the program, Phi Theta Kappa program resources course. That's an air quote there. And you'll see all of them that we've done all this year. So if you want to go back take a look at that technical writing workshop prior to getting started on these Hallmark Awards. I highly suggest it. It's available to everyone. And also, if you wanted some more information about Honors in Action and College Project, you can see full sessions on those as well. Advisors have other resources in the 5-star advisor curriculum as well. This session will be posted sometime soon. But definitely by the end of the week in those sections. And we will, I'm gonna, just to make it a little easy too, if you are with us today, or if you're not, you're reviewing this at a later date, we're gonna use the same Zoom link that we're using today. We will email you again, but just to give you a little cheat sheet. We're gonna use the same one on November the 30th, and we hope to see you back. If you have any questions between now and then, please reach out to us. We're glad to help you. You're welcome,
Yes.
Jacqueline.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for spending some of your Wednesday afternoon with us. This was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
well,
This has been very informative. Thank you.
Good. Thank you,
You're
Zeta.
welcome. All righty.
All
Well, have a
right,
good
see you
afternoon and a great weekend upcoming.